We have live here in the studio Herman Tiu Laurel. He's the president of the Asian Century Philippines Strategic Studies Institute. I'm sorry for pausing, that was a very long name. Right off the bat, Mr. Laurel, your thoughts on the matter, on the ongoing issue over the West Philippine Sea, please.
Well, let's keep in mind that the BRP Sierra Madre has been there for 24 years, since 1999. So the question people should ask, if China is such an aggressive presence there and stops deliveries to the ship, how do the Marines survive 24 years there without food, water, medicines, and so on? So obviously, for 24 years, the deliveries of food, water, essentials for the human life, survival of our Marine detachment there has always been delivered successfully. Am I correct in that question?
I think there were previous incidents.
There were some incidents.
There were some
Just to
incidents, but you're
clarify.
talking about 24 years. How many incidents that you recall? A dozen?
We
half
ran
a dozen?
We did a rundown in the
Yeah.
last
So how many?
show. I can't recall off the top of my head, but there were previous water cannoning incidents, there were
Yeah,
ramming
that's right.
incidents,
There have been
harassment
previous.
issues.
Why did not those incidents create such a furor? Why?
They did.
No, they didn't
did.
cause this kind of a furor where people are being called traitors to the country just because they're trying to explain the entire picture.
I think,
Since you brought it up, sir,
it
hold
has-
on. Let me just read that quote out loud.
Yes.
Since you brought it up, this is Philippine Coast Guard spokesman Commodore J. Tariela,
Yes.
who said, if you're a Filipino, whether in government or private sector, regardless of your politics, defending and making excuses for China's aggressive behavior should deem you unpatriotic and a traitor to the Philippines.
Well, it is
and to our
Tariela who
people.
is unpatriotic and traitorous because he just came back from the United States. We have evidence there to show him thanking the U.S. government for his 3-week course there and so on and so forth. He's a tainted source. So are many other Filipinos posing as patriots and nationalists over these issues. When Claro M. Recto or Renato Constantino writes books about the colonization of the Philippines, the colonial mentality of the Philippines, is that being treasonous? Because these are realities. But my question is still, how many instances? Half a dozen? A dozen?
I
have
believe
not
the point of contention now, Mr. Tiu Laurel, is the fact that in the recent incidents, they have gotten a little bit more heated. The water cannon incidents, it
water
only started
cannon-
during the Duterte administration when it started to escalate.
In 2021, there was another incident with
Correct.
the water cannon. Water cannons are the most benign police instrument for crowd control. For any such situations where you need to control activities of what you feel are forces intruding.
There's also been incidents, sir, where these so-called dangerous maneuvers were carried out over the sea. Apart from the water cannoning, there
Well,
were
you
some
have-
near collisions at sea, which I think, based on international maritime law, is considered
if
risky
there,
maneuvers.
if there are violations, then they can file cases there. But obviously, we don't have those cases filed because a lot of it is propaganda. In this case, for example, I cannot show you all the pictures, but I do have some here in my tablet. You have Tariela being interviewed beside Raymond Powell, an ex-U.S. Air Force colonel who now works with the Gordian Knot Center of Stanford University, a think tank that is also funded by the U.S. war and defense industries. Like many of our so-called intellectuals defending the so-called West Philippine Sea, people like Richard Haydarian, they're involved with the CSIS through the Albert Del Rosario Institute. You will see the connection of the ADRI with CSIS. CSIS is the new CIA, funded by, among others, U.S. government, Japanese government, and Raytheon, Rand Corporation, and all these other U.S. Defense industries.
But having said that, sir, like, what do you make of it then, in your point of view?
Well, we know that the U.S. Is an economy that thrives on wars. And they fund all these think tanks all over the world also that promote crisis and situations where war can be triggered.
Okay, so let's go back to the water cannon
Yes.
incident, okay? You mentioned that this is a benign way of controlling the situation, but this is different from the interpretation of the Philippine Coast Guard, because for them, this is very dangerous. If you watch the video, you can see how small our vessel is compared to the Chinese vessel.
You can also see from the videos that the aim of the water cannon was at the front.
If we will
of the
base it from the video provided by the Chinese government, but if it
even
comes
if you
from
look at the video of the
Philippine Coast
Philippine
Guard, it's
side,
different.
from the Philippine side, it does not, hindi pinupuruhan kumbaga sa Tagalog.
So ano yung ginagawa,
Pero
sir?
look,
Kung hindi
ba
look, I
siya-
mean, the video, you can see clearly,
Yeah,
sir.
let's look at
It's
it.
a
Let's
David
look at
and
it.
Goliath situation,
Well,
right?
that's another matter. David and Goliath, of course.
And when you
It is
say,
good nga, it is a David and Goliath,
Right.
Goliath situation,
But-
because if not, then you may have had a real clash already with the arms and so on. What is the strategy of China? China is exercising its sovereignty over the
right. And the
areas,
second,
in the areas. no?
except the second part of this is that we did have AFP spokesperson Colonel Medel Aguilar here in the studio as well, and he said this was a premeditated move by China.
Because it was a premeditated challenge to China's exercise of sovereignty. When you have a challenge, there is a response. You have an action, you have a
we
reaction.
hadn't challenged. Premeditated, meaning they planned this ahead.
Yes, because this was also planned because, again, if you go back to the roots of the incident, I investigated this. I talked to the reporter that broke the news in the Philippine media. The fellow that fed the news is Raymond Powell again, the ex-U.S. Air Force colonel. You know?
Right.
Okay,
We
but
do have
picture-
videos this time around, sir. We
Show
just
me yung pinuruhan, targeted at the middle of the boat. Show me.
It was the cannon was clearly moving from side to side.
And
So
Marcel
it
was
would
also
Yeah.
following
Yeah.
this story, so I think she
Sa
knows
liit-
better as well.
Sa liit niyang vessel
All I'm
na
saying,
yan,
all I'm asking, show me the video that tries to hit directly the Philippine Coast Guard ship.
Okay, but let's talk
So there is
about...
none.
Let's talk
There is none.
We
No,
do,
no, no,
we
we
do
do
have
have
videos.
video.
videos.
Show me.
we're
Show
just
me.
trying to call up
There.
the video.
What's
no,
that?
meron pa eh.
Saan tumatama?
There is one taken from the smaller Philippine vessel.
From inside the vessel.
First of all, the
If
smaller
we could just
Philippine-
call up the video, I'm calling out to the producers
Yes,
now. If you could
so
just call up the
please show
video
it.
that was
I'm
taken
just
from
asking you
inside
to
the
show
Philippine
it.
vessel, you'll
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
that they, here, I think this is
No,
it.
let's see. Let's see. You'll see the impact of the water is very far, but you also see the waves towards the boat of the Philippine
But
Coast
But let me
Guard.
get your
Regardless,
point.
regardless.
So,
Okay.
while waiting for the video, I'd like to ask, what do you think of the sincerity of China when it comes to dialogue? Because during that time, the Philippine Coast Guard themselves said that actually the National Security Council mentioned that they tried to call China. They have a direct line, but the Chinese government did not answer.
Both sides are claiming that they cannot contact each other, you know, or they cannot contact the other side. But today there's a news that I read that the Philippine side has officially cut off the hotline between the Coast Guard authorities of China and of the Philippines. No? So I'm still waiting for that video na targeting the body itself of the Philippine Coast Guard.
But
No.
regardless,
Oh,
sir,
what's that? What's that? Where is it? Where did it hit? Show me.
was that the one taken from inside the Filipino vessel? Regardless, sir, you...
Oh, I'm just trying to establish the fact. I
Right,
have not
right, right.
seen
So are
any
we.
evidence.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
We're also
okay.
trying to establish
Okay.
facts here.
Let me
when you
talk about the reliability of the words of the Chinese government on this
Okay.
issue. And Jinggoy Estrada's claiming there's no evidence. Well, let's take a third-party view. You know, from the previous spokesman of the Americans, Gregory Pauling. Well, you're all waiting for that bullseye hit, you know.
There.
Yeah. Where's
There
the
we go.
bullseye there?
There,
There.
sir.
That's not
POV
hitting.
of the
There,
Filipino vessel
sir,
is right
that
there,
is
sir.
right
Ayungin.
there. The water is hitting it, sir. We can't get any clearer than this
No.
video. All right, let's go
No.
back to what you were saying about the third-party view. What third-party view were you referring
Yeah.
to?
So this is from Greg Pauling. No? I still haven't seen what you're trying to show. No? But
We just
Anyway.
showed
We
it.
just showed it. And in any
that
case,
was
we
just
can.
a spray. That was a spray.
So how would you justify that spray, sir, from the Chinese side?
The use of water is non-lethal. That is why they use water. If it is really an aggressive act, they would have used bullets like in 2013, the Philippine Coast Guard killed a Taiwanese fishing boat captain,
Right.
Guang Ming,
Right.
and 8 Philippine Coast Guard officers were convicted by Philippine courts for using those guns.
Except that the Philippine Coast Guard as well told us that prior to the water cannoning, there was also a chase that went on.
Well,
The Chinese
again,
Coast
the
Guard was
angling of-
trailing, and also there was a near collision as well.
Before we go on,
That's
were
them
you
telling us.
informed that the boat carrying the rice, the food, the water was allowed to pass?
One
Sir,
of them.
one boat
So
made
that
it
was
through.
very
There were
clear.
two.
Just
the
one.
other was
The
not.
other one
Okay,
was not.
the other one, why was the other one blocked by the Chinese daw?
It was blocked because the food that well,
It was
I don't know
not-
why it was blocked,
Well,
but the
the-
supplies on board were definitely ruined by water damage.
The supplies on board, as the Chinese side says, is construction materials. Maybe steel bars for construction, welding equipment, and so on.
Do you have evidence of that, sir?
Well, that is the bone of contention now. Of course, the Chinese vessels are also asked, how do you know what's inside? Well, in order to establish that, you would have to board it and inspect. And I think in such situations, there are some communication by radio, and the request by one side to inspect if you're coming in with a bigger boat that can carry construction materials. That's why one of the agreements, according to the Chinese side, which we have read even many years before, is that the boats bringing food and other sustenance to the BRP Sierra Madre should be small boats, not capable of carrying. That's why the small boat was allowed to go through. So we are establishing first that the Chinese Coast Guard is not blocking everything. It is allowing humanitarian goods to
I
reach the
think
Marines.
the Philippine Coast Guard disagrees with you on that, but
Yeah.
also
What did they say?
they said that they were blocked. They said that they
The
were
food was
trailed.
blocked, but we
They
just
were trailed,
agreed
that they
the
were
block-
blocked, and then they were water
We just
cannoned.
agreed that you also said yes, the boat carrying the food and the rice and so
So
on was allowed.
one boat made it, so there was still a blockage that happened because not all of the supply boats were able to make it.
Well, first of all, we have to make clear the humanitarian supplies versus construction materials.
But
Again,
sir, why
that's
would
not
we have to?
confirmed, though.
Okay, so
That's
sir,
not
Yeah.
confirmed.
what's
So I know
the
that-
point that
What's
you
the-
would like
Your
to
question
make?
is, why would the Philippines have to ask for permission?
Yes, because it's inside our
Well, that's
exclusive
why I
economic
was explaining
zone.
from the very beginning, China is exercising its sovereignty
Right.
over the area.
So China doesn't recognize the fact that we have a exclusive economic zone.
Well,
Because the other parts that we are
It's
all
not-
arguing about,
it's
they
not
might
all-
be outside the EEZ, but
It's-
the Ayungin Shoal itself
That is what
inside.
the Philippine side says. We have our EEZ there. But it's not only China
So
who's
it's not
saying,
just the
Sir,
Philippines
it's,
that
sorry,
says
sorry,
that. This is-
exactly. It's the
an-
2016 Arbitral Tribunal, which already ruled that it's a low tide feature forming part of the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines.
Okay, you want to go to legalities, let's discuss that. First of all, it is not only China questioning or not accepting the Philippine claims about EEZ and territory. What other countries are not accepting it? Are you aware of that?
What are the other countries?
Malaysia, Brunei, Vietnam, and Taiwan. Because they have their claims of they have their territorial claims over it also, or EEZ claims over it also. Right? So I'm establishing first, you do not have
Regardless,
Carry on, sir.
but the point is that the Philippines accepts the ruling, right?
Well,
And-
the Philippines accept the ruling, but 5 other countries don't necessarily accept
But who
the
are these
rulings.
5 other countries? They're not claimant.
not-
they're,
we're-
they're not
we're
involved
not-
in the incident
They're
anyway. We're
claim-
talking only about the
Their
Philippine
claimants-
incident versus
the
China.
incident is based on the claims. Okay?
Right.
The incident is based on the sovereignty being exercised by one country over another's challenge to the claim.
Yes,
That
but we're
is
only
why-
talking about the Ayungin Shoal
Yeah.
in this specific case,
what is
and
your-
nobody else is making
Yeah,
a claim
and-
to it.
And
No,
that's
no, you're absolutely wrong there. Malaysia, Brunei, Vietnam, etc.
I
have
believe that the claims
there.
and the Spratlys.
This has nothing to do with them,
Yeah.
sir. We're only
But
talking about.
Ayungin is just part of the Kalayaan group of islands they claim, a part of the Spratlys and so on. That's part and parcel. You cannot discuss the button, very nice button in your dress, but only in the context of your entire attire, di ba? Oh. And that's why there's a controversy there. Oh.
Okay, on that note, sir, we have run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mr. Herman Tiu Laurel, President of the Asian
very much.
Century Philippine Strategic Studies Institute.